So, you want to be a Commodore 64 sysop and run your own BBS. Well, this guide will show you what it takes to get your own BBS installed and online, ready to take your first caller. In this video, we will be working specifically with CNET DS2 for the Commodore 64, version 2.6D, presently the latest official copy of the software. Even if you don't own a physical Commodore 64 computer or compatible modem, you can still run a BBS using emulation with a program called Vice, which we'll be using in this video. There will be another video released specific to installing on real hardware, since there are so many variations of drives, modems, and peripherals. So for now, we will just focus on using WinVice. But whether you're using real hardware or virtualized hardware, the setup and operation process for DS2 is exactly the same. So, what you will need is a copy of the CNET DS2 software, available for free from the developer's BBS, a copy of WinVice, the Commodore emulator software, also free to download online, a copy of TCPSER, the Telnet proxy handler that will be providing the connectivity, and optionally a JiffyDOS ROM for your virtual disk drives to make them faster. The software developer has been so kind as to include a Windows installer wrapper for this software, and that will include all three of the items required for this project in one single download. In addition, the WinVice deployment will already be set up, including all of the virtual drives, the modem startup scripts, and the BBS launcher batch file, so this will truly be a turnkey operation once you get your hands on the DS2 software. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go and download a copy of the software, and it's for free, but it's only available on the provider's BBS, not website, BBS. So if you have any questions about it, don't beat me up in the comments. Just take a moment to pause and look at this statement here. Yeah, that's right, boys and girls. If you've never downloaded a file from a BBS before, best to probably start now if you intend to be a sysop. Best way to go about that is load you up a copy of SyncTerm in my case. Give you the address to the BBS in the description of this video, or you can just look at it right here on your screen. Future World 2 is going to be the name of the board. Port 6800, and we're just going to slide on in here and connect. So before you can even begin to download, you have to create a new account on this board, and then you wait and wait and wait to be validated so that you actually have enough access and file credits to be able to download the file in the first place. Trust me, I'm working on this to try to get this software a little bit easier for people to download, but for right now, it's this is how you do it and maintain legality. Otherwise, I'd get in trouble for even sharing it. That's beside the point. Moving on. Now, normally, I would say do not skip directly to the file transfer section. It is considered bad form to avoid the message subs and skip right to the file bases like a software leech.
Bad form!
Right, so we're just going to go ahead and go into number 2 for CNET 64 BBS, and we're going to do a scan for all. And just press yes just to get to number 7. I can tell you number 7 is the one we want. It is the CNET 64 executable, complete with the installer and TCPSER and WinVice. Everything that you need for version 1 or 2.6D. So just hit D7 for download number 7, and then just press OK. And then yes, we want to download with our default Z-modem protocol, and just press enter to begin. And at that point, it'll automatically just start downloading into your wherever you have your download set to go in SyncTerm. Doesn't take very long. It is kind of a chunky little thing, but as you see, it's already starting to build the create the installer there in the download folder that we chose. Just kind of wait this out. Speed this video up a little bit. It should take anywhere from 45 seconds to a minute and a half, depending on your speed. Once you're done with that, you can log right off. Just quit and quit and quit and quit, or you can hang up. Doesn't matter. It's not my BBS. Once you're disconnected, you can just go back and find that you now have your nice and fluffy executable. Just double click it and just follow all of the default choices all the way through. It's going to install in the root folder of your C drive. Just next, next, next. Do you want to launch the BBS now? You might as well. So just go ahead and say yes, and it'll go ahead and launch everything for you. So see over here we have our WinVice, and our modem, our TCPSER instance, is already minimized. It's down there in the start bar. Just resize this however you like. Where do I backdrop? There it is. Frame. Now you notice that it already has a date and time set. That's due to your real-time clock on the CMD 4000 device. Alright, so now we'll just move our modem over to the right. So when it first comes up and launches, the first thing it's going to ask you for is where's your DSP files drive? And that is basically your boot disk and where your applications and executables for the BBS are. That's typically always going to be device 8 and drive 0. That's typically always going to be your starting point, and I'd recommend go ahead and keeping your main boot files and your program files in there. So it's going to load our configuration program, and the first thing it's going to ask us, what is our boot disk and drive? Well, that's going to be 8 and 0. So let's go ahead and put in 8 and then 0. And you'll notice right away that our relative files needs to be adjusted. So let's press number 3, drive 8. And if you don't set that, that's going to suck, because that's where your data files rest. So for right now, we're just going to go ahead and keep all this stuff on the main drive for now. It just makes it easier. Plus, I will go ahead and tell you that the installer is broken a little bit. So if you try to put it anywhere else but 8.0, it'll die on you. So let's just go ahead and keep it like this for now, and I'll show you how to fix it later. Alright, default character color. I like light blue. We'll just leave it light blue for now. And we're going to save our changes. And at this point, what it's doing is it's modifying your boot file. Let it know where to find your relative file so it doesn't have to ask you every time. Alright, so now we're going to create user files by pressing number 1. And yes, we'd like to continue. Now we're going to put in the relative files disk. That's what we put in before, which is device 8, drive 0. The number of users to start, we're just going to pick 50 for now, so it doesn't have to sit there and create a big long relative file. It'll grow as the users come along. Alright, now let's go to disk drive assignments. Now that we've created our user files and our data files, we should now be able to go in here and set these accordingly. So everything should automatically default to device 8, drive 0. And that's kind of where we want it. Now this number 8 down here, this RTC sync, that is for your real-time clock. Let's go ahead and leave that at 8 also, because drive 8 does happen to have a real-time clock on it. That's how we were able to set our time automatically after we booted. And so we press 4 to begin our access groups. Before anybody can call your board, we definitely need to let them know what kind of access they have. And more importantly, we need to tell the board what kind of access the sysop can have. So all of these are going to be pretty much without much access at all. So definitely the one thing that you want to set first is going to be new users, so that when the new users come in, they get the appropriate access. So we're going to give this guy 3 calls per day. Let's say 30 minutes per call. And since they're new users, we want to give them a little bit higher idle time. Alright, so I'm going to give them 5 minutes. And how many downloads per call? We'll say, anywhere between 5 and 10. There's a handful of good files that new users need to have. So 5 is a good number. So be very careful here on this next part. You're going to either say 1 or 0, true or false, for these different levels of access. So system maintenance, obviously we don't want a new user to have that, so that's going to be 0. There we go. Email, yes, the new user can access email. User list, that's up to sysop. I allow it to happen, so yeah, they can see other users on the board just by simply listing it. Some people think that's highly important information that you should have verified access to have. I don't think so. Can a new user access their parameters and change their password? Sure. Can they perform sub-maintenance? No. Can they perform P-file and G-file maintenance? I'm going to go ahead and say no. And can they do MCI in their messages? MCI is a way of doing colors and special character controls and stuff like that. So the upload-download credit ratio, we're going to leave that 1 to 1 for every credit or for every block they upload. That's how many blocks they can download. Maximum editor lines, let's set this at something low, because this is for them actually getting into the subs. Alright, now we want to set our sysop level. So we're going to come in here and say sysops can call unlimited times per day, 0 for unlimited. How much time per call? Again, 0 for unlimited. How many minutes idle? Okay, this is tricky. This is handled differently, so 0 doesn't cut it here. You have to say 9. It's a single digit, so we're just going to go ahead and say 9 minutes idle. All right, downloads per call. That's going to be unlimited, so we can say 0 here. And we're going to say all ones here because sysop can do everything. Our credit ratio is going to be 9, also a single digit here. Maximum editor lines, I'm going to come back and say 100. Alright, so just press enter to exit out of here for now. We've made our 2 access groups that are absolutely necessary, our level 0 and our level 9. We're going to go ahead and exit to save changes and then come back in and create our number 2. The reason I don't try to push it, it's been kind of testy, so if this crashes, you lose all your changes. So it's best to quit and save out whenever you have the opportunity. Level 2 group. So we're going to call this validated. We're going to give them 5 calls per day. Minutes per call, let's say 55. Don't go over 60 here because it'll crash. Trust me on that. Minutes idle, let's say 3. We're going to go 10 downloads per call is a nice round number. So no system maintenance, yes email, yes user list, yes parameters, no subboard maintenance, no PNG file maintenance, and yes on MCI. Our upload download credit ratio is going to be 5. That's a good normal number. And for maximum editor lines, we're going to go 60. That's a nice little area. And press enter to save your changes again. And now we're done with access groups for now. Like I said, there's 9 of these things, or excuse me, 10 of these things total. So you can go in there and create all the other ones you want in between. You can customize it however you want to. Just don't give anybody any of those unconfigured numbers or else you'll have undesired results. All right, so we're going to press 6 for system passwords and default flags. This is where we set all the particulars about our BBS. So let's go ahead and change the BBS name. Not like a porn site. Grow up. Our operator is going to be the sysops name. And this is not setting your user record. This is just for display purposes only. So we'll say King Dingaling. That sounds good. Our identifier. So let's give it an initial of KC. Our system maintenance password, let's change that to secret so nobody can guess it. P-Files maintenance password. This is so you can have somebody managing your games section or your BBS doors. Number 5, we're going to set, so we'll say doorman. Okay, so for the default flags, there's 8 different libraries, and in each of the 8 libraries you can have up to 20 subboards. So that is a total of math. So 8 times 20 is 160. That's how many different subboards you can have. Just press 6 to start. So for every bulletin library that you want to give new users access or that you would want to enable, you turn them on here. So we know we at least want the first one. The second one is up to you. For UD libraries, we're going to have at least 3 starting out. Now we have chat requests. Do we want to allow users to request a chat? Allow the users to send feedback to sysop. Number 3, are we allowing them to be non-readable? Upload, auto-validate. We'll just auto-validate the file. Whenever they upload something, it'll be auto-validated to where everybody can see it. Downloads are allowed. Unlimited downloads, do we allow those? And these other 2 are future upgradability. All right, so now just press enter to save changes, and then, of course, yes to commit the change. And now we are ready to call our BBS. We've got enough information configured to where we're ready to make our first call. And that first call will create your user account. So press 8 to quit configuration and go back to the idle screen. Alright, so now is a good time to introduce you to the light bar. F1 through F7 on your keyboard will move the keys and select them. So F3 moves left, F5 moves right, F7 will make the selection, and F1 will modify it if it has a special modifier. So we're going to go over to LO and click F7. And that's going to bring us into our idle screen menu. And right away we're going to press N to call the board. We do not want to connect instantly, we want to connect normally so that we go through the entire experience and set up a new user account. Press backspace to engage color graphics. Alright, so now we're going to say new, create our very first account. Let's see, and this is where you set your sysop name, so King Ding-a-ling. Yes, very proper. Now we set our password. So my super secret password for my sysop is password. Now enter your phone number. Later versions of this, I'm going to include a way for you to take this level of validation out so that your people don't have to have phone numbers. It's kind of dumb. Enter your real first and last name. And now just press enter to move on to the next thing. Select your computer type. Alright, and there's our ID. That's where that KC or that initial comes in handy. And these don't get saved to the user account information. They only get presented to the sysop during the application process. This information is not saved once feedback is deleted. If you do not fill out this information, or if you do not leave a comment of any type, it will abort and log you off. Now we have to practice logging in. Just enter KC1. Alright. It's not going to work with your name right away. It will for regular users, but not for the actual first sysop user. There we go. I was fat fingering it somehow. Alright. 30 minutes left for this call because it's using our settings that we selected for new users, group level 0. Now you want to change your access levels. So we're going to use the F3 key to go over to the left and highlight AC. Press F7 to light it up. And then we're going to press F3 or F5 to bring the number up and down. So now we want to get that set to number 9. And then when you have it set, press F7 again to deselect AC. And now type in the command AC. And it will now confirm your new sysop level. So at this point, press S to verify your stats. It should now say level 9 sysop, or whatever it is you called it, and just press enter, and now log off. This will save your information into the user data file. And once that's done, you are actually ready to take calls from the general public. So if we look at our disk over here, we see now we have a nice fat user file, and there is our first user information. So that's kind of how the relative file is laid out. I mean, I'm not going to go into too much detail on that for now. I'll have more advanced videos about modifying files later on. So now you're ready to take calls. Now, obviously, before you can take calls, you want to put some content up on your board. There's not a really whole lot to do. So let's go into number 5, edit libraries for subboards. So right away, you see we have message-based libraries and message subboards split up into 2 different areas. So we're going to start with our libraries, and we're first going to go ahead and define them. Remember, we only set up 2 libraries for our subs. So the first one we're going to call general. So right now we're only going to configure one of them. If it's still set at library 2, it won't be visible to the users. Only when you change the name will it be visible. So let's go in and select number 3 to do our message subboards. And now we're going to create our first board. And now we're going to select the first library. And let's create our first board. It's automatically going to come up and say blank, so just press 1 to edit the first one. And we're going to call it Welcome Center. And for the groups that we're going to allow to come in here, we want all of the levels, including new users. We want everybody to be able to join this sub. So we're going to say device 9 is where we want our subs. So we're going to still select drive 0. Sub-op ID is, but you would put the ID number of the person you want to be the sub-op. The path name, we're not going to modify. If you wanted to have your subs all on one disk but separate them by folder, you could do that if your drive supports that. Alright, so now we're going to go create our second subboard, and this one we're going to call News and Advertising. Same as before, we're going to allow everybody in it. So you would simply press 0 for any access level you don't want to be in that. So device 9. So now we're going to save our changes and get out of there. So now we've created our subboards. Practically halfway there. So now we're going to go in and create our UD libraries. Now before, you noticed, you remember we had defined 3 of them. So the first one we're going to call C64 Utilities. The second one we're going to call C64 Games. And the third one we're going to call Other Computers. And remember, for each one of these you can have 20 subboards. And press 4 and the library number that we're going to modify first. So just like with the subs, these are set up exactly the same. They're going to ask for a name and the access level that we want to allow into it, the device. Now, since now we're going to put these on, say, drive number, device number 10, no path, and with a username, or with no sub-op. Alright, second one, let's say archivers. And after about this, so now you kind of get the idea of how these are set up. I mean, it's really easy. Alright, so for the second library, let's say we want people to just upload here. Alright, so now it's time to introduce you to Exchange libraries. And that's where you can have a file transfer area that acts just like a straight disk access device. Kind of like Image BBS has UX instead of UD. That's kind of what this is, but you can have them in the same library. And to do that, you simply you put /E at the end of the name. And that tells the system that it's going to be an Exchange library. So for this one, let's say we don't necessarily want new users to be able to upload anything, because I don't trust them. So we'll say you have to have at least access level 1 or higher to get in. And this is going to be on device 11, a completely different drive or device, and sub number 2. And just press enter to exit out of that. And again, 8 to quit the configuration editor. So now you have your subboard structure and your file system structure. Now if we use the Express login, we can quickly log in and go see what this stuff looks like. So now let's go to sub number 1 in our bulletin section, and we can create our first post. We're going to title it, and we're just going to welcome to the BBS. Short and sweet. Let's throw in some MCI. And we're going to make this jump the cursor around a little bit. MCI. And turn off the codes. So now when we read it, that's what it's going to look like. Alright, so we'll just save that. And again, I'll do a more advanced tutorial on some of these fancy things you can do on the BBS. But for now, we're just creating some basic content. So now, we're going to scan. And we see our post that we just created. And if we want to read it, we can. And there we go. We've created our first subboard content. And we list our boards and we see the 2 that we created. We're not going to bother creating anything in the second one. You get the idea. Now the menus, if you don't know where the commands are, you can press question mark at any spot and it'll give you a quick view of all the different commands available from that area. So if we go into the second sub here, news and advertising, let's say we want to make an entry file for this one. Because when you go into a sub, it's going to show you right there, what the name of it is, and kind of a basic list. But if you want to create some custom entry files, you would modify that from the maintenance command. So maintenance menu, so that would be Z, and then edit entry file. This is going to be the file that displays when you enter a subboard. The info here. Or share any other news you have about upcoming events. Yeah, good enough. Alright, and now if we go back in and just press enter, let's go back to board number 1. That doesn't have an entry file, it's just going to say Welcome Center, and go into board number 2. And this is where it displays our entry file. And now I'm stalling for some reason. Now we're quitting. Now, system maintenance. Remember that command remember our secret password? This is how you can call into your board remotely and still access the sysop module. So if we press S to modify our system files, these are the files that we can configure and change easily. These are just little sequential files that are shown to the user at various points in the BBS experience. So we want to modify our sysstart file, which is our screen that is shown just before login. All right, so we're going to delete everything from number 2 on down. Welcome to Kingdom Come. Again, get your mind out of the gutter. There we go. There's our login file. Very simple. Nothing fancy. And while we're here, we probably want to go in and change the goodbye file, or the file displayed just as the user is logging out, which is called sysend. 6 lines there, so let's see what we got. You are now leaving CNET DS2, Software system, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just clear the whole thing out and write one from scratch. Okay, so we're just going to speed through this. There we go. Holy crap, we're filing it. Alright, so that should be enough just to get you going. You'll figure out the rest of it. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. And like I said, there will be other videos. I'll bring over this copy of CG Term. So even though we're doing this locally, you can get an idea as to what it'll look like when you call in or when somebody else calls in. So we see our new login file there that we created. So here we go. We're going to log in. King ding-a-ling. So this is the first time actually calling in since your account's been created. This is the part I was talking about, potentially moving and getting rid of. So There we go. That's pretty much it. Here's our logout file. And kablam. All done. That's it. We took our first call. So I hope you found this somewhat educational, albeit a bit long, but and get out there, put up your own BBS. And if you want to see what a fully modified CNET DS2 can actually do if you put some time and effort into it, then give my BBS a call, the 8-Bit Playground, available 24/7. Here's the address for it. And I have other videos on how to call BBSs if you don't happen to have a Commodore 64, or if you just wanted to use an emulator to call. There's several videos out there showing you how to do that. But yeah, check out the playground. But until then, see you on the RetroNet.